keeping it highly professional here with the Gizmo and crew. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Great.
Good.
Fantastic, man.
Now, if anybody doesn't know anybody else, we're going to start off with Nick. And Nick had a super chat come in. Somebody wants to, well, they don't want to support Nick. They want to support his nose. And so everybody knows Nick was the first person on this stream before it started. So
yeah,
his reputation may be in tatters.
Uh-oh, your reputation
Nick,
for being late is being questioned.
yes.
Oh dear.
Yes. But my heterosexuality is apparently cemented firmly. So
your channel.
Oh no.
The relationship you have with your crew is so different than mine, and it's so fun to see. It's just everybody's got such a different vibe, and it's funny the back and forth with you and your audience. It's really fun to see.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. They're usually pretty good.
Usually.
Well, at least they're fun. I mean, that's the best part is his audience is just fun as hell. Nate, the lawyer, Nate Brody, second live stream of the day. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Just got snow up here in New York. I got got to had to make a call to the DA's office later. It's just like it seems like even though the world is blowing up outside, it's still you got things you still got to do. So, but things are moving on. I'm just it's fascinating because when you step away from the computer, you almost forget there's a whole another world out here. You know what I'm saying? Like get in front of the screen. It's all about recipes and it's like,
all right. And last but definitely not least, and getting her first experience with snow, at least recently.
No, it really is. Hello, everybody. I'm Emily D. Baker. Hi. Yes. Snow is like making me vampiric. So if people didn't question how pale I actually was, the snow outside my office window is just putting, this is what it is. I'm reflecting, the snow's reflecting on me. I'm reflecting back on it. But we moved to Middle Tennessee this summer. I have rarely had snow outside my window. I lived in Massachusetts in college, but normally I didn't wake up till the middle of the afternoon anyway. So I just didn't even that's kind of how things rolled in college. So I wasn't really this worried about it, but it definitely, I had to, it's interesting. And I normally stream at night. So it's fun. It's fun.
Imagine streaming in a room with windows.
I mean, I started my YouTube career in a basement. So, well, not a basement, but a garage. And I used to stream in my garage all the time, but it's added a whole new dynamic to streaming, but I'm super happy to be here.
Nick's promptness is already being called out. And I see that the law nerds are here.
Hello, law nerds.
And thank you guys all for being here. I'm most of all thankful to be here at all.
Can we talk about that, please,
yes.
Eric?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to answer any question. Whatever. In fairness, it's still quite confusing what exactly went down. And the more time that goes on, the less it makes sense. If that makes sense.
Now, because I know we have respective audiences coming in, can you just give a breakdown of what happened and how it resolved? Because I still don't know how it resolved. I saw stuff go down on Twitter. I was like, wait, what? So your channel vanished into, it got Thanos snapped in the middle of a live stream or something?
Probably, except there was dust with Thanos.
You had no residual.
Yeah, exactly. And I think everybody here can confirm because I was on with Nate immediately after, and there was a little stripe that said this channel has been removed for violating community guidelines. So, you've got a producer here too.
It was so bad. Even your emails were getting flagged.
God, yeah. My emails to Nate were getting flagged, and I think that was on another account. No, it was not a fun day, and I'm surprised. So you mean as fellow YouTubers, it might have thrown a little bit of a scare into you?
No, I want to go ahead and say that I supported YouTube's decision, and you definitely deserved it. Look, we're gonna take the unpopular opinion here and run with it.
I've been here. I've had other YouTubers reach out who have randomly been demonetized or like removed from the partner program with no notice. And when I talk about transparency in social media, people are like, well, why? Like it's their business. They can do what they want. And I'm like, I understand that. But this is why it can be a problem when there is no transparency to it. But at the end of the day, it is their business. But transparency is helpful because not knowing, it's like, well, what did I do though? What did I do? Like if I just took all my kids' electronics away and didn't give them a very thorough 3-part answer as to why, they would lose their minds, as any of us would. We just want to know why. And you can't avoid it. It feels so random. And that's frustrating.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys heard about R&R Law Group. He just had this same issue with his whole channel being demonetized for 30 days. He's another lawyer. He just cracked over, I think, 100,000 subs. And it's interesting because his content is very similar to mine. So I started noticing on my own content that a lot of the videos that I hadn't asked for a manual review, all of a sudden, they've been manually reviewed as okay. And I'm like, okay, somebody's now is watching. And since my content is so similar to his, because we really cover, like myself, Nick, and Viva, we all kind of cover the same stories in pop culture and politics. So if they're demonetizing him for saying the same things that I'm more or less saying, it does make you think like, okay, maybe I should tone it down, because what they're trying to do is get us to self-censor. That's the epitome of it. And as long as YouTube has this monopoly over what we do, then we have to kind of play the game until we can figure out, until hopefully Rumble or something else blows up, so we can at least have some options.
Toning down explanations of the news and the law that governs our lives causes me deep fucking concern.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, it's amazing because there are certain subjects, and I won't mention them, obviously out of respect for where I am, but there are certain subjects that YouTube has publicly said these are off limits. And some of those subjects are right up the alley of lawyers over the past, I don't know, since somewhere around November. These subjects all became really, really important and simultaneously the biggest legal stories in the country. And so we're here trying to talk about these subjects and consistently wondering, if I mention a quote from a lawsuit or a quote from a news story, am I going to be removed for that somehow being attributed to me? And it's like, I have sent emails and stuff to creator support saying, this is ridiculous. This isn't my view. This is the view of the person filing a document with the federal government. And how can I not cover that? How am I supposed to avoid this issue? It's the core part of a story, but they don't want us to say it. Now, thankfully, of course, the worst thing I've ever had over those things is just, having a video demonetized, and all I get to do is rant impotently about it at some poor intern at YouTube. But there's a very real fear, though.
At least somebody answers you.
I mean, it's fair.
No, I just want to point it out. I mean, there was a small little problem of, like you mentioned a couple things like creator support. Who?
Yeah, when your channel's down, there's nothing you can do.
There's no YouTube studio.
Right.
There's no chat. There's no anything. And Dragon's Treasure, which I know Nick and his audience definitely knows, they make really good tea. There's a coupon code there called Unstructured, and it's just thedragonstreasure.com. Unstructured. If you guys like tea, and it's the really good stuff, the fiddly stuff, that you go in. You get
it's actual drinking tea, law nerds, not the other kind.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Yes.
Tea.
Real tea.
I had some jasmine ball tea earlier today from Dragon's Treasure. It was very good. Nice. Very good stuff.
But the fact that like pop culture and political news and the breaking down political news so that people can understand it, which is really what all of us seek to do, break down shit so other people can understand it better, is somehow supposed to be gate kept, is very frustrating to me. I'm like, people need to understand what's being said, even if it's like, well, this may be total bullshit, but these documents say this.
Sure.
How is explaining what is said it blows my mind and it causes me concern.
Well, you brought into the suits yourself, Emily.
Oh yeah,
that blows my mind. It's like you're worried about YouTube. Hell with that. You're just named in affidavits.
Straight up named, right? This coverage.
Yeah, but at least they linked my channel.
Oh,
so there's that.
Yeah,
somebody else is really jealous that they're not there, I think.
Oh my God. No, matter of fact, it was funny because I remember Nick sent me a DM on Twitter. It was like, look whose avatar appeared in this suit. I was like, please put my name not up here. But Emily's whole channel appeared. I was like, thank God it's not me.
Yeah,
again.
you're just in a little like DM there, but it's not the first time that I've ever been brought into a lawsuit. It's the first time I knowingly have ever been in a civil lawsuit, but there's been plenty of prisoners that have had issue with the way I argued at a closing argument. I had a prisoner write incessant letters and appeals that I used a very unflattering photo of him, his booking photo, in my closing argument. And because I used that photo, it showed that I was clearly committing prosecutorial misconduct because the booking photo was so bad, and that the fact that I used that in my closing argument was a problem, and that he was obviously going to jail because in Long Beach, California, his defense attorney was wearing cowboy boots, and so his court-appointed attorney wearing cowboy boots indicated that he didn't know what he was doing, because who would make that fashion choice? And he didn't like the clothes that he was brought to wear in trial. So I was in all of his handwritten appeals, which was
this is like the
fascinating.
Fab 5 argument or whatever against a sentence.
No,
it was my lawyer screwed me because he showed up in boots, and I every time he wrote about this, I'm like, blame it all on my roots.
Hey, Bootsy.
Yeah. One thing about these whole YouTube lawsuits, and I had to find this out earlier because I covered one earlier, and it's the same thing. You say something one person doesn't like. The one played one part, next thing you know, I'm like, oh, somebody put my video on the lawsuit. Yeah, how'd you get this video? Because he published it. I'm like, yeah, it seems like instead of attacking the other side, they want to attack the coverage. Like, because there was one case I covered where Forbes magazine did a workup on it and was like, hey, this guy's coverage has been great. He's actually said the plaintiff should win. And then the person didn't like the coverage. So they attacked the Forbes guy as being dishonest. Then they attacked me of being dishonest. And everybody who doesn't say what I like is dishonest. But so I think when you're covering other creators in the legal space, it's more personal to them, because it's like there's another creator saying these things that I don't like about me, versus me just being a independent commentator saying, hey, this is what I think is happening in this suit. I know what's it called, the Vic is that the one that you had the problem with, Nick? Vic, right?
Oh,
the
yeah.
Vic suit?
Yeah, I had a great time with that, where the Minnesota Lawyer publication that goes, the publication that goes into the garbage can of every law office in the state. They wrote a wonderful, actually I got 2 write-ups in there. How a Minnesota lawyer fomented an online hate machine.
Wow. Making the local news. Local boy makes good.
And I fully suspect. No, I don't have physical copies of them.
Dude, you should have it behind you on the shelf.
I got it in chief. I should get one. But I think the defense of that lawsuit had something to do with that. I think they were reaching out for news coverage. They've been mad at me since day one because of a lot of reasons. About 268,000 of them coming from a GoFundMe that I opened. But they did everything. They tried to subpoena my communications with the client. They tried to subpoena my communications with the legal team. The problem with them, of course, was that they didn't properly serve me. So I technically have no notice of it still, even though it was all reported. But it was like, God, you're so mad. And instead of focusing on me, maybe you should focus on the suit. Like, instead of wasting your client's money on some idiot on YouTube, you should focus on the lawsuit that you have. If I was a client, and maybe this was client directed, but if I was a client paying someone, $400 or $500 an hour, and they're sitting there watching YouTube videos and going after that person, I'd fire that attorney in a heartbeat. But
amen to that, brother.
I think the waste of money in any of these suits is the thing that annoys me the most. No matter how I feel about the case or the client, looking at lawyering that's just running up bills, again, unless it's like Amazon versus Apple versus
Right.
Facebook, I'm like, burn your money in a ditch. What I don't care.
Yeah.
But when it's private citizens, really, and YouTubers, even if they have a business entity, it's still their YouTube channel. Watching lawyers just burn money with what I think at some points is either not ripe litigation or senseless litigation just pisses me off. It's a waste of the court's time. Some poor research attorney is like, fuck my life. I have more to do than this. And it wastes the client's money that needs to be reserved for discovery and litigation where you can actually win shit. It blows my mind. But then when I hadn't looked at, and I know, Nick, you covered it early, the Keemstar Romeo Lacoste lawsuit. I hadn't looked at that until Keem won the play button. And I went back and looked, and I was like, now there's a legal strategy I can get behind. Keem's a team could have fought over all kinds of shit. And they're like, the heart of the matter is this, we win. They've been paid, and they've finalized this lawsuit in under a year. They just went for the jugular, knocked it all out. We're done. Used the filing in the wrong venue to their advantage. Keem's gotten his lawyer's fees paid and gotten Romeo Lacoste play button a month before this thing was even filed last year. So 11 months, awesome. Start to finish.
And getting the play button has to be sweet. I'm sorry that his little trophy on the wall, that was kind of a brilliant move, because how much of a legend has he created for himself now? How much money is he going to earn by being the guy who collected this trophy?
He set the standard for, I think, YouTube lawsuits. Now you need a trophy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now you need the play button.
Yep. And there's some interesting things there. First, Romeo should be thankful that Keem did exactly what you just said, Emily, because if Keem could have easily run up $200,000, $300,000 in bills on this thing, fighting over venue, which was something I brought up early on in the coverages. This is improper venue for Keemstar. Like, he's not there. Yeah. There's no tie to him to get there, but they just went after it anyway. And that saved a year of litigation. Yes. And so that was a great move. Grabbing that play button, someone was talking to me about it, and they're like, oh man, that's like a $30,000 play button. I'm like, first, Keemstar's views are $1 million a video. He's going to make that back in 3-4 videos. That's not a big deal. But that is a priceless item. You can't buy it because
and the money wasn't going to him, it was going to the legal fees. So he probably got the lawyers.
It was reimbursing what he had paid on legal fees. I don't think I don't think the $30,000 matters to him at all.
No, for the legendary aspect of it. Oh, hell no.
He and I ended up on Clubhouse together after I talked about this, and we're in a Clubhouse room chatting about this. And he was talking about the settlement agreement, because he won the lawyer's fees at the end. He got the settlement agreement to get the play button and slightly less lawyer's fees. And he was talking about what the agreement stated to get the play button and how many pages this agreement was of, it has to be the play button in this picture. It has to be packaged and shipped this way. No. It has to be insured. It cannot be damaged. It must be in this commission. Like, he didn't want Romeo Lacoste taking a hammer to the thing, burning it, and sending him like a ball jar of ashes. And like, here's the play button, which, by the way, if you don't specify that shit, it's still the play button.
Good point. Good point. A gentleman who died this past week, Larry Flint, was famous for making his judgment payment with wheelbarrows full of pennies. Oh. Now, in fairness, the judge also said, now you sit and count it.
Ooh.
Which is fair.
I'm just saying. So
you have to specify these things. But Nick, the thing I was interested about looking back at that is the anti-slap laws, I think, in California are better for Keem than they would have been if he had moved venue to New York. So I think Lacoste's team made an error in picking California. Well, they made an error in not properly filing the case in the first place, but they picked a venue where the defense was stronger, which was interesting to me.
Yeah, I don't know if we have enough time to go through all the errors that Lacoste's team did, but that lawyer that he hired is, I mean, that guy shouldn't be practicing, in my opinion, anymore. Not just because of that case. He's been disbarred, I think, 3 times and come back. He's been suspended 1 or 2 times other than that. And his litigation in that case showed why. I mean, he was, if I don't think that was a normal practice area for him in general, but he was way out of his depth and he seemed to have no idea what he was doing. And well, let me just go ahead and write down that my client admits to everything that Keemstar's accusing him of. It's not a good
plead the case properly and bar it forever. Like he can't.
What? And hold on, I gotta look this case up. That actually, because I know about the play button and all that stuff, because I call it the O.J. Simpson like model, right? Because that's what happened to O.J. Simpson. They won this Heisman Trophy and melted it down. So, but I didn't know this. So I would assume the person should file charges against the attorney for they can if this sounds like malpractice at the highest levels. It seems like.
It depends on how much of its client directed. That's true. That's the thing that we as commentators, those are the things that we can never really know. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he basically, now it would have come out eventually, I guess. But he flat out admits that his client did have inappropriate communications with people underage in the complaint. And it's like, wait a minute, that's yeah,
which
crux of the whole issue.
Well, it wasn't even it wasn't a libel suit either, was it?
It couldn't have been. It couldn't have been because it was true. And he went on Keem's show and admitted that it was true. It was a tortious interference with business relationships. But to have that, you need a tort. You need the thing. And he never pled the thing. Like, that's a two-part. You got to have both parts. So you can't just say part A and never say part B. And that's where the anti-slap lawsuit came in and was just like.
Yeah, they were trying really hard to get around the word defamation. That was their goal. Because it was entirely true. So they're like, well, and in California, that doesn't work. There's only one state where I've seen where TI can possibly exist with a true statement. And it's doubtful that it would actually survive, but it at least is allowed in Texas. They haven't adopted the second restatement on TI yet. And so truth isn't an absolute defense, but it's a pretty good one.
I got a couple of super chats I want to roll through real quickly before I lose track of them. This one goes back to earlier, but my problem with the company can do what they want argument is that I'm of the opinion that companies lying to users / consumers would be fraud. That's essentially in the privatization. We've gone through that with Parler, Amazon, a lot of this stuff. And then somebody else pointed out, then in Australia, good luck with the Facebook news posting situation down there. And Facebook is throwing down. So
look, more people need to realize that Australia isn't even a real place.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
One thing I want to quibble with the first super chat you put up, and the reason why is because the reason why the terms of service are pages and pages and pages, and no one reads them, right? We don't know what we're signing up.
We do.
So, well, yeah. I assume there are some people who read them, but obviously,
but they're not negotiable. That's the funny part. It's pages and pages and pages saying we own your soul. Just sign here. Have a nice day.
But the thing is that the negotiation is sign it, take it or leave it. Right? You can go someplace else, and that's the free market. And I think people have to understand that that's the free market system. Take it or leave it. And we're going to get into it on that sometime. Yeah,
we should get into it, because is it a free market if you can't go anywhere else and the companies actively block you from going anywhere else?
Thank you. And also, if you have government assistance or regulation that's tying into a market, I'm not going to specifically say YouTube, but for example, for a long time, I could get Cox Cable or I could get Cox Cable. And if I didn't want Cox Cable, I could get Cox Cable. But don't worry, the free market was going to allow me to do it. Wait, no, you can't start a cable company because there's governmental regulations. So we've got to get really careful when we talk about free markets versus corporatism and things like that, because let's just say that some markets are freer than others.
Well, I agree with you. That's the way it should work. They just made it so it can't work that way.
But just to be clear, though, there are natural monopolies and there are unnatural monopolies. And what you're talking about is a system where you can have an unnatural monopoly, like my electric company. I don't have any choices. But it's a natural monopoly because of the way the system works.
Well, you have that with YouTube too. I mean, because you have Google as the parent and the search is already going down. You have Rumble with the lawsuit going in.
I would disagree.
Results, and EU's spanking them on it too.
I would disagree with YouTube. I don't think YouTube is like a utility company. I think it's the easiest to use, the most fashionable use, and most people are using using it. But I wouldn't say YouTube is like a utility company.
All true, but they're also acting to suppress competition, like Rumble. Thus, the case that's in court right now. They because we're going to go to Google, we're going to go to the parent because this does matter.
Okay.
And have you ever heard of Kayak? Yeah, you have to, because the results come out on top.
Okay.
So there's already problems with YouTube suppressing any kind of Google suppressing any kind of competition from their crown jewels. Just to be clear, Google has no obligation to be fair, right? Google is a business. Their business model isn't that we got to promote everybody equally. Right? Their business model is we got to make money, and we're going to promote the people who are paying us money. So if your argument is that Google should promote everybody equally, obviously that's not their business model. And if you choose, and if you don't like what Google is doing, I would say. But I'm saying they should have the freedom to do what they want. And if they choose to do things that we don't like, we should have an option to go someplace else. Now we can talk about not having other options, but to say that the argument shouldn't be I want to suppress their rights to do what they want to do with their company. The argument should be we should have more options. So if I don't like what they're doing, I can go someplace else, right? I'm just not into government suppression and more regulation because I don't like what this company either.
This company is legally doing. This company, if they're doing things they can legally do, then, and I don't like what you're doing, I should be able to go someplace else. I shouldn't be forced to go to you. And I think that's the issue.
Right. But I'm saying that they're also getting a government handout and assistance, a lot of these companies. And maybe some of that needs to be pulled back.
Okay.
All I'm saying is I want a free market. That's it. I'm not saying, go regulate somebody or whatever. I'm saying, no, you pull back that support. Pull back any kind of shields they have. If you're going to make a move, maybe you should be a publisher.
I think there's a different angle to this as well. And since we're lawyers, we got to look for all the different angles and figure out why we, different ways that you might attack the problem. And I think one of them that's really interesting with your situation is the fact that, and in many others, that there is no communication about a cancellation of a contract. Yeah. And while these are adhesion contracts and those are the bastard stepchild of all contracts, they seem to be, and despite courts saying that they're disfavored, I mean, they are the prevalent and prominent choice of the digital age. You can't get away from. We found out that Parler's contract with Amazon, and you're thinking, Parler's growing this massive multi-million-dollar company. It's got millions of users. And then you find out it's Amazon Web Services literal click to agree contract that they're under. And you're like, oh my God, this is infectious. Mm-hmm. And so, when you're thinking about business contracts and forgive me, I'm not up on my UCC, but I feel like there might be some avenues through the UCC or through other contract law to say, you have to at least provide some reasonable explanation as to why you're severing a contract. Because if the reasoning is improper, then we should be able to challenge the reasoning because we have a contractual agreement. And that's one of my big problems with how YouTube is handling this stuff. I actually see, a lot of agreement with both Eric and Nate's points on the nature of these businesses and what they're obligated to do versus what they're not. But I just think that if we can build in sort of traditional common law remedies that we would have to all other aspects of contract law, if someone else, like if you're in a business relationship with someone and they just ghost you, they say, nope, you're done. Right. You'd have grounds to sue them and at least try for discovery. But against YouTube, like the idea of suing YouTube and getting to discovery is almost impossible because of 230. Yeah. So they're going to have a pre-existing defense to your ability to access the information.
Yeah, it's a shield. And that's my problem. I want a free market. I just am saying either you take the shields away and just have a free market. And maybe I should just say what happened. So, because we're talking
allowing
around
a remedy is a huge part of this. And I think Nick makes a great point on that if you walked into your business location and they had changed the locks, you have remedies. Mm-hmm. You can't be locked out of your business location. When YouTube is your business location, you can't sue them for transparency. So if they're going to have 230 shields, they have to have more transparency, or they can't have it can't be both. You can't have no transparency and a shield so that there's no remedy for a creator like you who, if you walked into a business location you could sue over that. You can't sue over this. So I agree. And I absolutely see where you're coming from. Is like, hey, the markets need to be free. Yes. But then how do we deal with the businesses that don't allow for competition, aggressively don't allow for competition? And then that's another conversation. But Eric, what happened?
Okay. I was doing a live stream. 45 minutes into it, I got a text from Viva Fry saying, "Hey, dude, did they take down your stream?" And he sent me a screenshot saying, "This video violated community guidelines and has been removed." So I continued talking for a second because I'm on StreamYard. I know Emily's familiar with it. And I was like, okay, well, this is weird. I don't know what's going on here, to the guest. The guest, now everybody wants to know who the guest was, and I want to be clear. He is the CEO of Zengo, which is a cryptocurrency wallet. That's where you put, however many Bitcoin or whatever, you just store it there. And we were having a giveaway. Somebody in the a viewer of the show was given $1,000 of Bitcoin out to random people. I was not involved. It was between Zengo and the person, but they did do that. I want to set out all the facts so everybody can come to any assumption that they want. Now, I talked to him for another couple of minutes saying, well, this, hold on. For some reason, it looks like the stream has been killed. Now it's still showing recording on StreamYard, and this is really weird. And I was like, I'm going to go ahead and end this. And if YouTube doesn't like it, I'll just put it up on Rumble. I'm sorry, but at least it'll be somewhere, whatever. I clicked in and it wouldn't, it was an error. It's like, unable to end, error. And I was like, well, that's weird. And I couldn't end it. So I'm on StreamYard. And then I got another text from a friend who was is a YouTube member. He said, did your channel get removed? And he had a screenshot of an email that he received saying, your membership has been ended. This channel has been removed. I think it even said for violating community guidelines, but I'll have to get it from him again. So it's like money. I mean, just now we're talking everything just getting yanked out from under.
Right.
I was then talking to CEO. Well, I gotta go. So I just hit a go to dashboard because I couldn't even end the broadcast. It was very weird. And when I looked at the StreamYard dashboard, it showed it was still going live. And this is relevant to coming up later. I'm just telling you guys. And I was madly texting with David, Viva Fry, and he was like, I've never seen this before. I don't know what's going on. He was finding how to appeal the decision. I happened to see in my email that, okay, there was an email that the video was removed and the channel was removed in the same minute. So they gave me a lot of time to react. It literally was at 10:46 a.m. That the time is going to be stamped in my brain for a while. On Valentine's Day at 10:46 a.m., YouTube performed a sexual act on my channel. Anyway,
sans consent.
Yes. I saw it in there, and I was really freaked out at this time. I mean, Nate talked to me later. He'll confirm I was not exactly speaking like a coherent person, but I was saying you can appeal this here. Note your channel, and it had a link to the channel, and I kept clicking that and seeing the bar going across. Your channel's removed. Your channel. I'm like, I can't appeal it. They sent me a bad link to appeal, and I finally figured out it was actually the here with the underline on it that was the link. I hit that button, appealed it, filled everything out, and to their credit, they got back to me within 20 minutes. Hello. Thank you for your account suspension appeal. We have decided to keep your account suspended based on our community guidelines and terms of service. Please visit youtube.com/community guidelines for more information.
Will that link tell me what community guideline?
No.
Maybe? No, that's too much to ask.
Of course not.
How dare you? How dare you ask such questions?
Ask for the questions. Ask for the questions. Of course not. We've appealed it. Fuck yourself.
Yep.
In essence, yes. 20 minutes, pound sand. Have a nice day. And by the way, when they canceled the or removed the channel, I love how they started the second paragraph. So they said, we have reviewed your content and found severe or repeated violations of our community guidelines. I've never had a strike, never had a warning, barely. I don't think I've had a blemish. I've had a couple videos that were demonetized and I appealed them and then they got remonetized.
Which happens all the time.
Yeah, because of this, we have removed your channel from YouTube. Second paragraph. And this is so good of them. We know this is probably very upsetting news, but our job is to make sure that YouTube is a safe place for all. If we think a channel severely violates our policies, we take it down to protect other users on the platform. But if you believe we made the wrong call, you can appeal this decision. You'll find more information about the policy in question and how to submit an appeal below. So that was my communication from this. So I'm talking to David, and then I think at some point I gave Nate a call because Nate was really courteous. He was a super nice guy. He's like, dude, just call me. And I was probably within an hour of all this happening. I was blubbering and everything else. Very maturely crying my eyes out. But it is what it is.
No, let's just be honest. If that happened to any of us, we would all be wrecks, right? These channels are this channel's important to me, and it's important to you. And just empathetically, I understood if I woke up and I couldn't get into my channel, I would be a wreck too. So you have nothing to be apologized for. That's a normal reaction to something this dramatic happening. For
crying
no
out of
at
frustration is not something I'm unfamiliar with, because it's the frustration of the thing of what do I do? And I mean, I've been texting with friends and then members of my community that are in Texas, and they're in the same boat. They're like, I don't even know what to do. I can't do anything. I can't get anyone on the phone. I don't know how to fix the situation. I feel stuck. I feel trapped, and I can't do anything. And when you're used to being able to fix a problem, or at least understand a problem, and there's no communication, there's no understanding, and there's no fix, I don't know what else you do but cry, at least first.
Look, never cry. That's all. I've got to say it. Just don't.
Rekieta's like, there's no crying in life. I cry about it.
Well, he's got the icicle heart and the giant
I cry bullets.
All right.
Now, is it bullets or bullets of whiskey?
Bullets of whiskey.
Oh, yes. Or bullet whiskey.
Or bullet whiskey.
Ooh. Nice take.
I had something. Oh wait, I have something that we can go back to later. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no worries, man. But that, by the way, that's part of the frustration is I had no YouTube studio I can log into. And my biggest gripe, no matter what happened, yes, I'm thrilled to get the channel back and everything, but there are some things I think are absolutely wrong on all accounts. If everybody in the world saw that my channel had been removed, that's fine, but allow me to at least log in and be able to do a chat or do something and actually have some appeal process, a legitimate one. I mean, I was vaporized. I don't know who said it first, but literally was vaporized from the internet. It was just gone. And
at least if they removed the front end and you could get into the back end, you could download analytics reports, you could download videos,
metadata,
you
could argue with or whatever. Say, no, I meant this. If let's say I said something wrong or I did something in description or whatever.
You could at least see what videos had been demonetized and remonetized, and at least have the information that you need to proceed. That makes so much just basic sense.
Right. And
well, Eric, quick question. Even today, do you even know why this even happened to you?
No, that's where it gets really weird.
That's the crazy part about it, right? Go ahead, Eric.
No. Anyway, through this, and I cannot. All of you know Viva Fryer David at some point. I don't know if you've met him yet, Emily.
We haven't met.
Okay, well, I'll have you on a stream with him sometime or force you into it.
He's famous for his work with squirrels.
Yes.
Work with squirrels is brilliant. Squirrels and I think Nutella.
The drummer.
How do you think he got him to take the GoPro? It's like he's a clever guy. He knows how to rig it. But he told me, record a video for Twitter. Make sure it's under 2 minutes and seconds or whatever it is. So it took me 3 times to get one done. And hold enough composure together. And fortunately, I do have a human behavior oriented channel. So I was trying to be very pointed, specific with my language and literally dancing on a pin, because when you're taken out by somebody, I can't just go in and say, look at these MFers. That's not going to fly. So I was like, how do I, plea or whatever? Anyway, so I got that out there. And thank God I know big creators like you guys, because people help amplify.
Creator, but
you are to me.
I mean, it definitely helps having other people to signal boost what's going on so it can be seen. But I know we had all mentioned it on Twitter, but didn't others mention it on Twitter as well?
Yes, and that's what I wanted to point out too, is it wasn't just the larger creator friends, although you put it in front of more eyeballs, which is very important. The people I think really helped me the most are the people who have, 50, 100 Twitter followers, normal people who work a job and they watch YouTube and they're, the customer or the client customer. I don't know what
the community.
Yeah, the community.
I mean, the overall community really, 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 I think tipped it. It wasn't the handful of big names. It was the thousands of small names who were just saying, I've looked at his stuff. I don't understand. I looked at his stuff. I don't understand. He's not controversial. He's not controversial. I had left-wing people saying he's not controversial. I had right-wing people saying that he's not controversial. People down the middle. I'm kind of out of the, the group, I guess, because I've had Nick on sometimes. You've been on it now twice, Emily, and Nate's on regularly. Viva. I may be the least controversial out of the lot in terms of content. I don't think I'm saying any flame-throwing comments and questioning integrities of anything. I'm kind of down the middle. I have CIA agents and FBI agents and whatnot. But I don't know. They took me out. One of the theories is that because I was the smallest of the bunch, that I could be a nice little signal to everybody else. I don't think that.
I don't know if
everybody can speculate on it because we don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if YouTube has like that. Their algorithms are very sophisticated in delivering content and stuff like that. I don't know that they're as sophisticated as picking up on guests, like creator communities, and then trying to do that. And I also saw some people suggesting it might have been the giveaway of the crypto or something. Sure. But what's interesting to me is, so I got my February creator update in my email, and I clicked on it. I'm like, what is this? I've never read one of these things in my life. And I click on it, and it's like, it's got use the go live function. I'm like, what's the go live function? I click, and it's like, oh, live streaming. Duh, obviously. But then it had a quiz. It like had a course on how to do live streaming. And I was like, oh, I'll do their course. I'll learn this foreign art. And going through, one of the things that it suggests in their course is to organize a giveaway for your live stream. So I don't know if that's now, maybe there are restrictions on giveaways, like maybe you can't do crypto or something like that. But like to have that in the creator course makes me wonder if that was the reason at all. And again, the hard part of this is that we don't ever get to know, and we can't negotiate notice. Like Emily's analogy earlier, if you walked up to your business and you put the keys in and the lock's been changed, you would probably have a notice requirement in your contract already. And you would have a right to that. But because it's an adhesion contract, we don't get any chance to negotiate that in. Could you imagine? There would be no law. There would be no law channels on YouTube, by the way, if they didn't have adhesion contracts. Like, no.
we would never agree. It's interesting because one of the things I'm talking about tonight on stream is SAG-AFTRA, the actors union, opening up to influencers and influencers on TikTok, YouTube,
Just what we need.
TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. But one of their things is the collective bargaining, right? And it was very interesting to me that what they said is they are going to be doing collective bargaining with companies for ads. And I have thoughts about that. But they will not be bargaining with platforms. And I was like, see, now you had me interested. But if you could bargain if they would be interested in bargaining with the platforms, that would be very interesting to me.
Because the platforms terrify everybody.
Right. But they negotiate with the movie studios. They negotiate with the studios. Aren't the studios the same as the platforms for an influencer? No,
Not
I don't
really, because they have no power in comparison. I mean,
I also
let's compare the power of MGM and Facebook. That's like a joke.
Well, but
Yeah.
but that's not always that hasn't always been the case though.
Right.
At one point there was no, it was MGM. If you didn't do what we told you to do,
I
dress
agree.
the way we told you to do, then you couldn't be in a movie. So so that power, but again, it became collective bargaining. Actors got together, and someone has to, unfortunately, like even in sports, someone has to take that first L, right? Someone has to be,
Sure.
destroyed, and then then everybody else can walk through the door of collective bargaining. It happened in baseball. For the first guy who wanted to collectively bargain his contract, he was fired and never played another game, but he opened up the door for everybody else. So maybe that's what has to happen here in our space. But I think until we organize ourselves, and we have to get the bigger YouTubers, because the only way they're going to collectively bargain with us as a group is if we get something like the PewDiePies and the people with 1 million subs to also join in some type of cabal. So then we can have that power to say, okay, this is your business. We're making you the money, and now we want certain rights.
there is
Go
a
ahead, Nick.
creators union started by who's that guy? He's great. I can't remember his name. He makes weapons like out of wood and stuff and like plastic bottles. He makes bow and arrows. Somebody in the chat knows who I'm talking about, but he's from Europe, and he organized with some other pretty large creators. Yeah, the Slingshot channel. Jurgsberg.
There we go.
Jurgsberg.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So they recently organized, and there is actually some creators union. I don't know the effectiveness of it. But the interesting thing is to think about, like SAG has been negotiating with wait. Can I ban that guy? No, I'm just kidding. No, but SAG has been negotiating with the film industry, but it's weird because we think of the film industry as this big thing like Hollywood, but nowadays they're really small.
Yeah, small town.
I just looked it up. In 2017, their gross revenue for the whole film industry is like $11 billion.
Yeah.
Like that's
And
smaller
it's like
than
all it's a couple Star Wars movies and something. I mean, it's a really crazy time.
Yeah.
Actually, if we get into more pop culture and things, I'm gonna love to talk about Gina Carano and
let's get into pop culture. I was just saying my thought on SAG-AFTRA is they're trying to protect the advertising rates for the people in their union already by pulling in the TikTokers, the influencers, the YouTubers who are getting more than traditional actors and more than the day rates. So I think they're trying to pull it in so they can pull up the other members of their union. That's my interpretation.
And they can also wet their beak, because now you suddenly have union dues coming from creators, and you have people who are bargaining on their behalf. And I'm sure that PewDiePie is going to line right up and say, "Oh, please represent me. I don't have any voice at all."
I think PewDiePie is going to line right up and be like, "My day rate's higher than that. There's not a chance."
Yeah.
But let's talk about pop culture. I'm happy to talk about Gina Carano.
Yeah, and that's I definitely wanted to in the show, and I'm sure you're getting tired of talking about Katie Joy and Toddy Westbrook.
I'm always happy to talk about Toddy Westbrook.
Wow. Okay, yeah, good times.
It's an interesting lawsuit. Interesting things keep happening. It's a fascinating lawsuit because of the wildness of it. So I feel like I didn't anticipate when I started this that it would go off the rails so quickly, or so like it's a defamation lawsuit.
I thought it was a lawsuit between lawyers now.
It is. It's a lawsuit between it's lawyers. It's lawyers smacking at each other. They just need to be allowed to challenge each other to a duel and just get it over with.
It's funny how much that parallels the Vic Mignogna case in the same exact way. Because I've said the same exact things about that case. This case, which for a year was, or actually, about 7-8 months was just crazy. And it was just a defamation suit. But we're talking, there were daily filings in this thing for months, and they're going back and forth. And I think it speaks to a new type of lawyering that we're just seeing the beginning of. And we're seeing it. We saw it with Vic. We see it with Toddy, and we're probably going to start seeing it more with Johnny Depp as his lawsuits in the US really start to ramp up. But there's cancel culture isn't going anywhere, and the lawsuits aren't going to actually resolve the issues legally. So there's another element to lawsuits that is starting to matter. And I think it's the public display of it in general, because it's an opportunity to go in, and especially with dummies like us who will go on and cover these things in depth and spread it out to thousands to even potentially millions of people. We wish, right? To get millions of people to see this, and to have one person get to say, they may have ruined me, but I didn't do it. And people need to know that I didn't do it. And I think there's a huge amount of power in that. And to my own shameless plug of the Vic situation, last year, I'm pretty sure that he was the most booked voice actor at conventions, which is where they actually end up making their money, of any English American voice actor for anime. And it's a testament to how effective the lawfare aspect of the lawsuit actually was, even though ultimately he didn't prevail in the lower court. So I think there's a real thing, and someone
we're
like
seeing
Toddy
this a
Westbrook,
lot. You're absolutely right, Nick. We're seeing this. I mean, even in the FKA Twigs case against Shia LaBeouf, because I can't pronounce his last name without getting millions of comments that I've said it wrong either way. I say LaBeouf or LaBeouf or LaBeef, and I'm wrong. I just rather be wrong. I rather be wrong both ways and call him Shia LaBeouf. But her entire complaint was a victim impact statement of, he did this, he sucks, I'm reclaiming my power. And then there's also some charges. The litigation privilege covering what you file in court documents allows for a very interesting PR mechanism. And of course, there has to be grounds for a suit. You can't file meritless suits. People do, but you shouldn't. And I think some lawyers just don't care that the PR of it is more. I mean, the first Toddy Westbrook lawsuit, the first sentence of that is, this is a lawsuit because of the defendant's greed. That is the first sentence of the business partner against Toddy Westbrook, and lays Toddy and James out to be people who abuse their audience. They are scam artists. They are the worst people in the world. And it's not written like a lawsuit. The lawyer didn't even sign it. It's a verified complaint, but it's written like a PR piece. And we're seeing that more and more and more.
In your roles, I'm curious, are you guys potentially being crowdsourced? And I'm just thinking, if I'm a lawyer, and I want to get a case out there, maybe having all these YouTube analysts looking over the case, I can go, they seem to be picking at this part of the case or that, and then I could use that to fortify whatever I'm doing, or I could say, ooh, they seem to be catching on to this. Maybe I can amplify that signal if I rework things in this way. I was just wondering if you guys actually inadvertently are playing a role to help amplify one side or the other without even knowing it, just by your audiences and people's reactions.
I've seen that happen in a couple of lawsuits that I've already covered. Well, two things. Number one, I think most lawsuits are never covered in this amount of detail, right? Nobody's out there reading every single filing and going back and forth, right? Most of the time, somebody say, this is somebody who's suing, these are allegations, we'll get back to when it's over, right? But we are in the daily grind. Hey, this is one filing. So I think that's the difference in the way we cover lawsuits. So then what happens is the people who are within the lawsuit also watch our coverage. So, for instance,
they should.
Like with Katie, like with Vic, and like even with me, with Steve, it's like if they don't like what we say, then we become the object of their attacks, right? They attack you personally. Oh, this person's dishonest. This person's against me. This person, this person's
lawyer,
now in their suit.
Not a lawyer. Doesn't have any expertise in reading legal documents. Shouldn't be commenting on legal documents.
Yes.
Just for example.
Well, you're I've heard in a weird way.
Yes,
I mean, you are demonstrating.
And to the crowdsourcing piece, yes, it seems like this is because in one lawsuit, people have to pay these lawyers, right? And I've seen GoFundMe's for defendants, I've seen GoFundMe for plaintiffs, I've seen GoFundMe's when one guy got a harassment restraining order, when it said this is wrong, look at Akila, she did a crowdsource to pay her legal fees when she had to pay her legal fees. So I think that's all part of it, and I think right now, the mix of now this in-depth legal analysis on top of people's ability to criticize us and to have this access to us as a community that it's changed the game a lot in terms of just legal analysis and what we bring to the table. And unfortunately, I think people don't understand the difference between us commentating and giving our opinions on these legal matters versus us advocating for one side or not. Because like even one of the biggest issues with the Katie case, for instance, people literally say I advocate for Katie Joy when that's just not the case. I'm friends with her, but when the motion to dismiss came out, I said I thought it was crap. I didn't think it was well pleaded. This. But and then when Emily says her true feelings, and it's interesting. Emily says almost identically the same thing I say, and she's on the tank for the other side. So
I'm on the payroll apparently.
Yeah. So it's not about what we actually say. It's about how people perceive it and how they want to pretend that we are biased against them. But it's just not true. We're professionals and we try to say it.
We're in favor of good lawyering.
Yes.
We're in favor of good lawyering. We're on the side of good lawyering. When I broke down, though it is demonetized and R-rated, when I broke down the Ringo Starr sex toys kind of complaint in a very cheeky way, it's a very adult-oriented video, but I did say, I see this side, but the lawyering on both sides is great. The lawyering on both sides is clear. It's concise. There's a little bit of shade because there is, but the lawyering is great. When you see good lawyering, it's great to comment on because you really are the Monday morning quarterback with these lawsuits. With the O.J. Simpson case, that's the first case I remember watching this coverage. And then being an LADA, we did trainings on the O.J. Simpson case and how it went down. Mm-hmm. There was legal coverage day to day of the trial. And at the back end of the DA's office, then there were bosses and the DA themselves going, the commentators didn't like this. People don't like how your hair looks. And then there's this shift, which in trials deadly. You can't start shifting tactics in the middle of a trial. You have to know where the boat's going when you're on the ship. Like you can't shift trial strategy. Juries do not like it and feel like you're being disingenuous. The interesting thing here is we're doing that early in litigation. Like this is all being sourced very early. And I think in the cases I cover, both sides are doing it and both sides are putting stuff out knowing it will be consumed publicly. Most cases are covered at the trial stage. These are being covered at the early law in motion stage, which is very different than the way we used to see legal commentary, but also there's no trials going on. So, and things are on Zoom and we have Zoom cat lawyer and legal is becoming another part of pop culture because lawsuits are so ingrained in American society.
Is this going to be something that might need to be required or a consideration of lawyers in the future is to know how to manipulate the modern media market? Because if they're doing it, they are trying to manipulate things, writing and throwing signals that you guys pick up or folks like you. I would think that if you're going to hire a lawyer, obviously if my butt was in trouble, I'm going to hire Barnes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I agree.
Definitely. Because I know that my stuff will be amplified in a manner that's going to make me look good. You know, we can argue whether it's this, that, but if I'm in trouble, I want Barnes out there. And I'm wondering if that's going to become, if not a known requirement, it'll be an important requirement and a skill set for legal teams to have.
Let me suggest yes. And let me also be first to suggest that I am fully available to be hired by any law firm for consulting on this issue. I have lots of experience in the field. I've been doing it for years and would be happy to
drop a link.
There probably is.
Rekieta.com/call.
You all probably could be hired.
I think there really is something in it. And the reality is, you mentioned Tequila, Nate. That's someone who should have been paying attention to the legal commentary. And if their lawyer, and the hardest part for a lawyer and a client is when they're being criticized and lambasted for what's going on as bad lawyering, they need to go, maybe this is bad lawyering. They don't have to necessarily come to the same conclusions. Lawyers disagree all the time. It's not controversial for us to disagree. But you have to take a look and go, now, okay, one guy says this. Is anybody else saying this who's also qualified? If there's someone else saying it that's also qualified, and in Akila's case, just about everybody's saying this is a bad case. Yeah. The judge is telling you this is a bad case. You need to drop that case. And she didn't. And it costs her, $40-something thousand on top of whatever her other legal fees were. But there's an
asshole too. That had to help. I mean,
yeah,
she's taunting. I mean, weren't all of her tweets just taunting, like, look, I'm going to drag him. I'm going to do. And it was like, all you were doing is telling the judge, please vote in his favor, because Sargon, I mean, his best ally was her.
Yep.
I mean, he just sat there, zipped it, and said, I'm going to go to court. And that's it. Didn't have to do anything. Just shut up.
He played the public image on that masterfully, because what should have been done by someone like a Sargon versus someone like an Aquila is for him to go on his channel, talk about it every day, talk about the oppression of the social justice warrior, blah, 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 and hammer it. And he didn't do that. Instead, it looked like he was taking the case seriously. He made all of his motions were substantive on procedural defects of Aquila's case. And then they went straight for the kill and said, this is all bad. This needs to be awarded to us. You've said she should have dropped the case. She didn't drop the case. Now we need fees. And he got them. But the main advantage that any of us provide, and this is something that law firms, I think, largely don't do, and they don't have time to, is to have someone who's qualified for free read every single word of every single document and to read them out loud and to laugh when there's a mistake or an error or they get a fact wrong and to point it out, because we've had people who have been watching every single minute and we know how they kind of notice that there's a fact that's in error here or there's something wrong here. They should be looking at that as a real resource, because you can't pay for it. I mean, to hire any of us would be hundreds of dollars an hour to sit and read the same documents. And we're doing this for hours at a time every single night. So, I mean, you could imagine
running it against an audience too. So you're literally getting the feedback in the chat of, oh, this is stupid or that's because if it's going to go in front of a jury later, this is kind of a jury and you got it being tested for you completely legally. You can't get any trouble just for paying attention.
You see what people like and don't like. I mean, I was reading the latest. Did you read this yet, Nate? The latest filing in the KJ case of Brown asking to be qualified.
We were talking about
that
earlier.
This morning?
Yes.
Okay.
I read it. It's crazy.
So I'm going through this and I get to the emails back and forth between the lawyers because they included all the emails, which I love. Yeah. It's the only glimpse behind the scenes we get of how these lawyers are interacting with each other because we don't know. We read the filings. We don't know the legal strategy here except to light money on fire. And there's a line from KJ's attorney that he's talking about the KJ by her first name, the witness by her first name. Her name's Lori Ann. He's calling her Lori. He's like, hey, Jeff, to the other attorney whose name is Jeffrey. You know, everyone, the other side is like, hello, Michael, Miss Barnhard, Miss Paulson, Miss and Mr. Westbrook. And then in one part of the email, he goes, you know, Lori and my Katie. And I'm like, what in the ever loving fuck are you sending opposing counsel an email for calling your client my Katie? It just is so weird to me. But those are the kinds of things that if you're going to put those emails in there, that you're going to see broadcast the public perception on, did he write my client and then delete it? Well, he's called her Katie through 6 other emails. So why is an attorney referencing their client as anything other than Miss or Mr. or them?
But the weird part about this, that whole thing is that I would suspect they would know that mistakes like this and things like this will be amplified because, you know, there's so many people covering it now. It's like you even though you're going to make that mistake, you should be writing it, understanding that, hey, this is going to be, because that's what I think if I was litigating now, that would be like the most interesting piece of it, is that I have to write for 2 audiences. I got to write legally sufficient stuff for the judge, which I think Salty did with the complaint. I think Salty did a masterful job of writing the complaint for 2 audiences. He wrote one that was legally sufficient to, you know, for the complaint, but also easy to consume for social media.
An easy story to read.
Yes. And here is, oh, wow, this is, and to make his case. But I think on the other side, they failed to do that same thing. They tried, but they failed. And going into it now, no matter what the case, like even with that case, the weirdest part about the newest filing is that on one end, he's saying Salty should be sanctioned because he should have known or reasonably assumed that Lori Ann was the client for Brown. But then in the background on all these emails, he's like, stipulate this, that there was no attorney-client relationship. Stipulate. And because they didn't stipulate, now he's saying going to court to make a finding of fact that he was never her client. But then why did you write the motion to sanctions that she was your client and he should have known? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But again, if someone's paying $4.50 an hour for like, I'm more concerned now that what are we paying for now? You know, why am I paying for you to write stuff that is ridiculous and being stricken by the judge? You know, you can't even write this motion. Why are you writing this? And why am I paying $4.50 an hour for you to argue with the other lawyer about BS? That's
for you to dick around.
Yeah,
for you to dick around with the court's time. Nate, I'm with you. When I read that, and for everybody, for Eric and Nick, who are just like, what in the fuck are we talking about? This case, there was a motion for sanctions brought. There's the motion to dismiss for jurisdiction, and then things went off the rails with witnesses. A witness flipped, who was a longtime supporter of KJ.
Oh, that's right. The agent
was 18 days and 750,000 emails. No, it's like somewhere between 70 and 150 emails, because the number changes each motion from
in
the
18
same attorney.
days.
In 18 days.
Yeah. 18 days.
Kill me.
Between this attorney and this woman who was like, no,
the judge
I'm in
is
Washington.
the victim in this case, I'm guessing.
The judge on the phone conference said, what I don't want to do is go through emails of you two saying he did this to me, he did this to me. And this is exactly what's still happening. So there was a motion filed with regards to sanctions with regard to this particular witness, who has essentially said that she was an agent of KJ in Washington. Very detrimental to an argument that you don't have jurisdiction in Washington. So he has gone after this a million different ways. Brown filed a 300-page declaration with every email back and forth.
Right.
I have no idea. Every email back and forth between them. He's filed multiple precipes. Then he filed a motion for sanctions. Oh, there are additions, motions for more shit. Like, but wait, there's more, Your Honor, and we didn't find out, so we're adding more to the record. But wait, there's more. Here's more. Then he filed a motion for sanctions saying Saltz shouldn't have submitted a signed declaration from this witness because he believed or he knew that she was represented by Brown, KJ's attorney. But the witnesses are at odds and there's a conflict. That's a whole nother discussion. Then he filed a motion to shorten time, which has been abolished in the state of Washington. He's local counsel. That was abolished 10 years ago. And he filed this motion to shorten time. So the minute order is like, motions to shorten time have been abolished. Your motion has been stricken. It's like, why are you doing this? Why are you filing this? Then there was a motion to qualify him as counsel, because now there's an ethical issue that he is also representing an adverse witness to his client as a client. Yes, Nick, that face. It's that face. But I need the court to decide that I can still be counsel because I didn't represent this person, but I want you to sanction the other attorney for speaking to this person that was represented. It's fucking bananas. And KJ has come for me. She has made disparaging remarks about me. She's actively, I believe, tried to cancel me. I still think at this point, I'm worried that she's not understanding the legal strategy that's going on here in all of this money that's being burnt. I feel like the attorneys have gotten caught up in this no fuck you situation. And I'm like, but is this best for the client? Like, I don't see how this
don't matter anymore. I guess it sounds like it's just a feud between the attorneys.
Somebody asked on my channel, and a couple people have said, like, did Salty steal Brown's lunch in kindergarten? Did he steal his girlfriend in high school? Like, what is the animosity here? Because it doesn't make sense how off the rails this has gotten. And Salt said early on, look, it's in bad faith to submit a Zillow printout and ask the court to take judicial notice of it. It's a big word, but also it's a fucking Zillow printout that the judge can't take judicial notice of to prove a fact. And then it just kind of went downhill from there.
And I think the interesting stuff with all this is, and I haven't been following that case because you guys have nailed it. And I did like a video on it on the jurisdictional issue a while back. And it's like, I'm not going to cover that. This is crazy.
Yeah.
you can't cover all of the stuff going on in politics and this. It's too much stuff. So I tune into your channel to be like, what's even happening with Robinhood? I'm fascinated. I want to know what's going on in the Senate hearings, but also these lawyers will not stop. And that's the same with the John Girardi case. It won't slow down. And there's only one of me.
Well, I think a lot of lawyers, because as as I think we're all aware, law firms are risk averse in the same way that courts are risk averse. And that's why we see everything lagging on technology and why we're on kind of this cutting edge of what's going on with how we cover stuff. And I actually don't consider Legal Eagle part of our clique at all. Not just because
any of you do.
I
don't think any of you do. I think
no, I like Legal Eagle. Let me be honest.
I like Legal Eagle. Legal Eagle's Encyclopedia Britannica. You pick it up off a shelf to find out about a topic, you put it back on the shelf, and you keep moving. It's a different type of content than what we do.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Exactly. Is that he's not in the I guess deep legal commentary place that we're at, because we're going through and like in-depth covering these issues, and he's like landing and grabbing a fish out of the lake on issues. But why we're ahead of all this, we can see lawyers who are they're not prepared for this. And I don't think, from what you guys are describing, maybe either side is actually prepared for the type of lawsuit they were getting into with these public personas. And I think there really is something that needs to happen for law firms. I don't know if it's training. I don't know what it is. If they need to hire some consultants.
There should be.
What was that? Yeah, they should
we should do this. We should just form a program and let people just hire us and be like, this is how you do this. But
in all honesty, by the way, I'll take a
in all honesty, it's not a bad idea. Like, because what we're talking about is you're writing for two audiences. Your cases are going to be broadcast out. If you have any sufficient level of notoriety, and it doesn't take much amongst your clients, and this thing could explode. And if what the real danger for these law firms is they're out here burning their clients' money, and the client can watch it all burn. And then they can hear someone like us go, man, if they're charging $450 an hour and they're buying 80-page motions and memorandums by the week, and then they get that bill and they go, $30,000 for this month. What happened? We're still in the jurisdictional phase. How long can I go on? And suddenly, these public lawsuits devolve into slap fights. I don't think any of these people are actually ready for this, because they've still got a physical book in the background. They've still got they're still wrapped up on this. Oh, I've got to have leather chairs in my office space. It's like that's
because that's what people think lawyers are. Right? That's right. That's the perception of
hiding, having any channel things.
No, it's the law books in the background. Kill me. The law books in the background kill me. They just do.
Yeah, they do.
They just do. I think that you're absolutely right, Nick. In this particular case, the Toddy Westbrook case, Saltz has definitely, Brown just put his entire resume into motion because he's asking for attorney's fees with his sanctions. So his whole resume's out there, which has opened him up to more commentary because he put all of his resume in there. And it's like, yeah, but okay, you also said murderous conspiracy when there absolutely is none. And you submitted Zillow as evidence. So I have questions. But Saltzy has also casually slipped in his resume into footnotes that he represents Ryan's Toy Review. He's in a class action lawsuit on the Hubbard case with the tops of litigation at YouTube and Google with regard to that case. So he's made very clear that he represents other large YouTubers. And I think that's why in that case, Tati, we see the local lawyer from California with Salty's firm. On the other case, she has a different attorney. That one's not as much in the public eye. I imagine Salty's still working with that legal team and is on the record in that case, but not doing the motion work because Mr. Fuchs is doing the legal work on that. It's Fuchs. It's Fuchs. But whatever. Yeah, he flexed in a footnote.
I was going to say, technically, is that kind of, are they getting caught up into the YouTube culture? I still don't know all of it, but sort of like, I'm the badass lawyer, blah, 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 blah. Same way saying I have a Lamborghini because of my YouTube channel or what all these people are doing. Are they getting caught up in that whole flex culture?
There was definitely some subtle flexing on Salty's end. And then Brown, I think, felt, I don't know if he felt left out, but in requesting $450 an hour for legal fees, had to at least defend why he was worth that after everybody's read that motion to dismiss. So it's very interesting to me why why we're getting these little like insinuations in there, and it's because it's getting covered. And at some point, are these just legal advertising? Because I bet if you came to my channel and took a poll of which attorney would you hire at this point, there would be a very strong opinion as to who people would want to hire. So you're also now into how much of this is advertising, because now people are seeing the work that nobody ever sees. Nobody sees law in motion work. How do you hire a lawyer and you know what they're going to be like in court? A lot of times you don't. But now you're seeing it. And we all listened in on the court call. We heard how they worked with the judge. It's wild.
You know,
Go ahead, Nate.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, my friend Ty Beard, who did the Vic case, I know he's gotten clients because of my coverage of the case, and also because of his appearances on the show and stuff like that. I know he's received work. So I think there's definitely an advertising aspect of it. But it needs to be very carefully managed. Because something I covered today is one of Trump's impeachment lawyers has been canceled, for example, from he was going to teach a civil law class or a civil rights class at some university. He's being classy and not disclosing it. But because he represented Trump in the impeachment, they said no. They said, we're not going to, it might make our students uncomfortable. And I think that's horrible. Right. And I think that's adjacent to the issue we're talking about, where there's some level of celebrity going on with the lawyers, with lawyering and being in public, but it's meshing with our current culture in a very negative potential way. I mean, for every opportunity that these guys have to go ahead and put their CV into a footnote and have people maybe hire them, there's also the reality that we forget that these guys are lawyers, and they're ostensibly representing the interests of their clients. And so what we do is we attach, the work that they do or the things that they do in a motion that gets read online, and we're like, oh, this guy's a good or bad lawyer. And that's a real problem, because what I mentioned earlier is we don't know what goes on between attorney and client when we're covering this. And that's a huge factor. I mean, I think any of us, maybe before we were in YouTube or whatever, if someone came up to us and says, look, I have $200,000, I need to go after this person, and I might have a lawsuit, I think a lot of us would look at that and go, is there any legal way that I can bring this suit? Is there any plausible way, even if my client's interest is more about the publicity or more about going after this person, I am representing their interests. Is there a legal way I can do that without it being frivolous? And then at the end of the day, there's a pot of $200,000 waiting for us. Like that's a good deal. And that's going to be a temptation for any lawyer. And so to see the fact that these people are representing a client interest, but then to ascribe their motive as to be not representing a client, but to be their own personal motive. I think that's a real risk that's going on. And I think that is kind of embodied in Schoen being canceled in a real way. It's like, I don't know what this guy thinks about Trump. I don't know what he thinks about what happened on January 6th. What I do know is that Trump hired this guy to defend what happened, and he did his job.
Right.
And
we've lost the conversation about defending unpopular defendants, because everyone has a right to a legal defense. And we see this in criminal law too, where people are like, how can you represent that person? Because it's your job and they have a constitutional right to a defense, and a good defense. Like you have a right to a lawyer. And we saw that. Which law firm was it that got canceled online because they were working with Trump in the election law things and they backed out? It was one of the bigger firms. I don't remember which one it is off the top of my head, but
right?
No, it was one of the big it'll come to me. But they were looking at working with Trump on the election stuff, and people were like, no. And some of their larger corporate clients, GM or whoever, was like, we will move law firms if you do this. So now it's other clients watching this too. And with the KJ Brown case, it looks like Brown's emails are being used for spoof emails and threatening emails. One of my questions was, what does that do to the confidence of other clients who might see this going on? Like, there's a lot of facets to this that we don't talk about, but client driven. And I try to say that in a lot of my videos. Like, people are like, why is this happening? I'm like, it could be client driven. It could be, I want this to happen. And the attorney going, there's a legal There's a legal way that can happen. I don't like it, but if that's what you want to do, at the end of the day, it's the client's decision. And we try to talk about it, but
sometimes, I've had, and I don't want to say I've had hundreds of thousands of clients, but I've had a difficult client before. Mm-hmm. And I've had clients who wanted me to do things that I didn't believe were legally were appropriate to do or legally relevant to do in a situation. But as an attorney, I always felt my job was kind of had a couple of different ticks to it. Number one, to get the best result at the cheapest price, right? And to do it all within the bounds of the law. Right. So, I wanted to spend as less money as possible, get the best result as possible, and we'll stay within this box. And when the client gives me things that goes to the edge, I'm the person who talks, I'm the person who decides what the tactics are going to be. I'm the agent, but, the tactics, the legal tactics and arguments are my domain, and a client can push me to say certain things or do certain things. But at the end of the day, if my name has to go in and my license is on the line, then I get to say no, and you get to find another attorney if you choose not to go down this route, and you pay me for the time that I've already wasted. I honestly think, like, even in this case with this case with Brown, I was talking to Uncivil Law earlier, and I said, reading the defamation, the response to the complaint, I would not have suspected. If you told me how much is this lawyer getting paid, I wouldn't have suspected $450,000. There's no way that I can reconcile Brown's CV with that motion to dismiss. I just can't, right? Because they seem like, the motion to dismiss was 1L, and his CV is $450. There's no way I can reconcile those two. And I think as we speak about it, and when they hear Emily say, this is when they hear Uncivil Law when they see him bang his head against the law, when they see Rekieta says, well, this jurisdiction, and then when they see me say, well, this isn't good either, mm-hmm. It's a bang, I think, to their bottom line. And now I think on Brown's end, I think now he's doing so much to kind of rehabilitate what I think he perceives as bad publicity. That's what all this is. It seems to me he's trying to rehabilitate what his perception in online is, but the way he's doing it is trying to go after Salt, and I think it's just spending his client's money, because at the end of the day, so everybody understands where we're at in that particular case. Katie Joy Paulson hasn't officially denied any of these allegations, right? She hasn't answered. She hasn't gone on record saying, I deny all these allegations, right? We're at the stage where she's saying, so what if all of it's true? You legally don't have a case. But all these filings are dealing with her saying, well, all this stuff isn't true. That's not where we're at. You haven't officially said this isn't true. And I think if you really understand that all of this nonsense that's going on, this 50 or 60 something filings that have been filed that's going on, is really nonsense, and it's costing the client's money. And I think at the end of the day, I can say one thing about this case. There's too much money being spent on BS. I'm not going to say the actual words, on BS. And the reason why is because somebody's getting paid, but I don't think either client, Toddy or KJ, is being well served by these attorneys. Because again, if you look at the Tucker Carlson lawsuit, from beginning to end, gavel up to gavel down, was 40 filings. And they went through the whole thing. We're at 60 filings, and we're still at part 1A, right?
We're at 64. Yeah, I think we're at 64 docket items in this case. The thing is, though, if Brown's going to rehab his image, don't file a motion that legally can't be filed due to local rule change when you're the local attorney.
Yeah,
just saying.
Yeah,
it's not it.
That's not working. Yeah,
and I know the local rules can be pesky, but he works for a large firm. It's like a 5-name partner firm. There's associates there going, excuse me, we can't. Like that's one of the things I think people find very interesting about our coverage is that each of us, I'm not going to speak for you guys, but I don't have a team of paralegals reviewing documents for me. I don't have anybody running Westlaw checks or anything on citation references. I'm just a guy who's reading through this thing, and I'm reading through the work of 20-year attorneys, and I'm going, well, this is wrong. This is a weird theory. This isn't going to work. I'm like, how are they not? I know that you, who's getting paid $450 an hour, can outsource the reading to a junior attorney who's getting paid $200 an hour, and they should catch this, and yet they're still not.
And that's the thing that's blowing my mind on these lawsuits lately is how is so much being spent for such low quality work when you have infinitely more resources than any of us at your disposal?
But it's always been done like this. And they've always been paying for it, except no one's been able to catch it because they haven't had lawyers like us reading every single line, pointing it out. But now
I feel like Nick just said we're saving the profession of law by making everyone step up their game. And I'm here for it. I'm here for calling out the nonsense. I'm here for calling out the work. I mean, I did civil consulting work because I liked being a government attorney so much because there weren't restrictions. I didn't have resources, but I had my own time and I didn't have to allocate my time. So if I wanted to call up detectives and be like, look, I need this and this and this and this too, I was requesting it because I was going to have to read it, but I didn't have constraints on my legal theory or the work I wanted to do, which is what I love about this legal coverage. If I want to go all the way down the rabbit hole on a case and be like, oh, let's pull all this up, I can, which is why it's so fun. That would be very constraining in civil practice, but you do have to do what's best for the client. And I think in some of these cases, what we're watching is going, is this what's best? Why do we think this is what's best? I have questions. Why is this what's best?
I'm curious though. I work in the IT field, and ideally, if you're doing your job in IT, you're like the Maytag repairman taking a nap. I mean, it's a weird field in the sense that if the IT person looks lazy, but you can't find a complaint, then they're actually amazing because everything's covered. Is it similar in the legal environment? Like, you guys are more attracted in reading these cases that are kind of going off the rails because there's so many problems, whereas a case that's very tightly written would be pretty limited coverage, right? You'd be like, okay, check A, B, C. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Point, moving on, because there's not much to talk about if they're doing their job correctly. Or am I misinterpreting?
Or you point out what's good. You read the thing and say, okay, we'll be back in a month when there's another filing, and you read what's good and you move on to something else and you point out what's good. I don't mind. I love pointing out what's good and a sassy footnote. And people not filing documents on single line paper when it's against the local rules. I feel personally attacked at this point because Brown has mentioned me in filings. I've been in my name. I mean, not always with the D. I'm Emily D. Baker, not just Emily, but whatever. And my channel's been linked, but still on the 45-line paper when the judge has a standing order that says 26. It blows my mind. Now I just feel like it's personal spite.
You were attacked.
Oh my God.
No, Nick's had some problems with his YouTube presence. How many complaints?
Oh, complaints. Yeah, Nick with the complaints.
Oh yeah, I've had 10 ethics complaints. I think I may get more. None of them related to my practice of law at all. So my most.
Does the bar have a category for commentary coverage? Like, is that a category in Minnesota? I don't understand how that works.
In Minnesota, I'm actually really lucky. In Texas, they don't do it this way, but in Minnesota, they go, is this person a client? Is this an adverse party? And if the answer to those two things is no, they basically dismiss him right out. They're like, look, we may not agree with whatever they're saying, but they have a right to say it. This isn't part of their practice. They're not representing you. They're not representing someone else. And you have the same right to complain, but just not to us. And so they let it go. In some states, I mean, they thoroughly investigate every allegation and they go through it. And I think that's a real shame. I think it's a symptom of the legal profession not being equipped to deal with modern aspects of lawyering and lawyering in a social space, and that they need to be able to quickly dismiss these complaints. And they need to go, there's not even a case going on that this person's a part of. Why on earth are we reading this? Because they need to balance our First Amendment right. And they need to balance our right to say something that's going to rankle someone a little bit.
No, Nick, they need a bar complaint for cancel them. They need a checkbox where they can just say cancel them and send it to the bar. And then the bar can have a circular file with all the cancel them complaints. I think that's what's missing.
But listen to how those are scumbags though, right? Because they're trying to go after you professionally, right?
Yeah.
By filing those complaints, those are scumbags who are trying to because they didn't like something that you said. Now, it's happened to me where people have been threatened, and I'm like, go do what you got to do. The fact of the matter is, we are just professionals who are giving our opinion on certain topics. And if people don't like it, they can easily unsubscribe and leave. But instead, they'd rather go and file an ethics complaint because
when
you
they
said something they didn't like.
They make a production of it, though. They will let you know. that
Oh yeah.
unsubscribe.
Now,
Just
No,
because you said something
apparently
they
they're
did not like.
they're gonna DM Nick and go off on him forever.
Hey,
Those
Nick
are
might
my
have work.
favorite people. Those are the best people. Oh, always get mad at me in DMs. But Nate, I love what you just said, because we have to realize that when I call someone fat or stupid, that it is my professional opinion doing it. That is necessary.
Okay, well, on that happy note, I know everybody has some prior commitments, and I
You're
want to keep
ending
things...
on Nick saying fat and stupid is his professional opinion.
Yes,
That's
yes,
what
yes.
you've chosen to do.
Exactly.
You've chosen the side of hate today, Eric.
We're good.
Exactly. Exactly.
Eric Hunley
better
has
thing-
fomented an online hate mob.
Hey, I had the fomenter in chief here.
Oh my
Plus, I
God.
want to have everybody hanging to get more words from you guys so I can bring everybody back.
Absolutely. I'm loving your sub counter, by the way, Eric. It looks fantastic.
Well, thank you.
I've been
I
wanting
need to
to
get it to
compliment it.
resemble yours more, though. I think yours is prettier. I like the shapes that are on display more.
I
think
assure
they're
you that my youngest tells me until there is an M after my number, I am not a real YouTuber. My
Oh.
oldest says until I have a play button, I am not a real YouTuber. So don't worry.
Well,
That's
you're
We
almost
keep it
there.
humble.
Nick, when are you
That's
getting your
coming
play
soon.
button? When are you
Yeah,
getting
Nick, where's your
Uh,
play
you
button?
just got
It's-
up, right?
So I don't know if it was the new year or because like I don't know, YouTube took like days and days off around the new year and they got a big backlog. But it took a while for it to get approved. It might be because I call people fat and stupid. That might be it too. But it has been approved. I've ordered it, and it should be. It takes 2 to 3 weeks for them to make it. So at some point it'll show up in my PO box, and then I'll be doing a video of me crying over it or whatever before I take my kid to go fish boulders out of a ravine.
So you're not going to do a T-hot play button or a thought play button video?
Thought no. Well, look, no promises that I won't do that.
Oh my.
Well, awesome, everybody. If you want to see these folks again on this channel, because this is an amazing panel and might mix it up even more, please subscribe. I've got to, I have to grift. I have to show. And honestly, please subscribe so I can get big enough that I don't get thrown off as easily, or it's a bigger stink if I do, because I literally need subscriptions just for survival. And
if you're not subscribed to Eric after this stream, then you are a bad person.
there it is.